So we're going to begin. So last week was very theoretical. If you weren't here, don't worry about it. If you were, just good. You were there. You can put that on a T-shirt. Say I was there last week. So we're discussing responding to crisis. So this week I want to. I actually wouldn't mind if we just started with a moment of just quiet. That would be so good for me. It might be good for you as well. So we'll just take a moment before we start. Okay. So negativity, crisis, I think, is the word that's used in the subject of this class. Responding to crisis. As I said last week, I haven't got any answers. It just took me an hour to say that, that's all. What I want to do this week is basically ask everyone to suspend whatever their thought process is, to just put on hold however your natural way of thinking about challenge and crisis, as well as if you're going through something right now, we're just going to leave it outside, okay? So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to close our eyes. Just close your eyes. If you want, you can place your feet flat on the ground, hands in your lap, and let's just take 4 or 5 very deliberate, deep breaths. I just want you to feel the chair beneath you. The sounds that are filling the room. Everything's welcome, all the different sounds. And I just want you to notice that you are here, right now, and you're nowhere else. You're not in the future, you're not in the past, nor are you in a different location. You're just here, and you're here right now. And just feel your body, sense your body, sense your existence as you're just sitting here, right now, and nowhere else. And when you're ready, you can come back into the room. Take a deep breath in. You can open your eyes. And we'll begin. So what's reality? I've got to give you a quick crash course on what reality is in order to then know what negativity or crisis or whatever, what crisis is. So the whole world, if you were a physicist, you'd look at the whole world as just mass and energy. If you could just look around, you just see mass and energy. Everything that exists, there's energy, and it's taking up space, and there's mass. And we're talking about on a microscopic level, and we're just looking at a large quantum of microscopic stuff gathered in front of us. But really, none of this is what it really looks like. We know there are many other colours that we can't see, and we know that there's all sorts of stuff in the atmosphere around us, not just nothing, there's air, and air is many gases, primarily oxygen, otherwise we wouldn't be able to breathe. There are hints of carbon monoxide and all sorts of other good things that the cars outside have placed into our breathing space, and there's all sorts of stuff. There's heaps of stuff right here. And we just see the world for what it is. We see tablecloths and people and men and women and a building. And we just go, oh, there's a building. It's not a building. It's a collection of atoms. It's not water. It's molecules. It's a brilliant world. It's an incredible collection of chaos operating in a really organized way to hold together, to hold form. And yet we just go, it's a table. I like that table. I don't like that table. It's not a table. It's millions and trillions of atoms moving at a certain pace consistently so that it feels solid. There's a whole lot of stuff going on right here, right now. It's not hidden from us, but we're just not seeing it or noticing it. And you can do this with any field of science. Any field of science, you can look at the world, and when you look at it, you can see one thing or you can see a completely other thing. But you can only see the other thing if you're educated, or you have the microscope, or you have the glasses, or you have whatever it takes in order to be able to see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see it everywhere. So even if you can't see it, you know it's there. And as you become more proficient in a field of science, you start knowing without seeing, and you experience it through your knowledge, not through your sight. So it's like an artist who looks at a painting, or an artist that looks at a nature scene and is completely taken away. You just go, it's just a river. And they say, it's not just a river. Just look at it. And what they're experiencing is something based on all sorts of knowledge that they've accumulated that makes this particular moment a particularly beautiful freak of nature, a fluke of time. It's just an incredible thing, and they're just amazed. You know, you read on page 3 or page 9 of a newspaper, oh yeah, NASA, they're in the middle of a flyby of Pluto, and they're sending photographs of Pluto. This is real. You go, oh, that's interesting. Now, if you're an engineer, or you're, I don't know, an astronomer or something like that, you're looking at you, oh my God, Pluto, 14 years in the making. And they've actually done it. And they're now radioing images back from Pluto. And you'd have this absolute Hislavs. You'd go bonkers with excitement by what is being reported on page 9 of a newspaper. And it's just got a little article. NASA does a flyby past Pluto. We read it. We don't appreciate it, so we don't notice it. Or we notice it, but because we don't appreciate it, we don't realize the gravity of such an article. But if you're in the field, your brain goes absolutely berserk. So the world is so much more than what it looks like. The world is energy. The world is a collection, well, before we get to a collection, it is a singular entity. It presents itself as a dynamic entity. So a singular entity, it's just one thing. It presents itself as multiple components, as many, many parts. That's what, you can't see what I'm talking about. I'm just saying it. I can't see what I'm talking about. I'm just reporting it. I'm just going off the texts. So it's part of the infinite. So it's part of a singular. The infinite, though, presents itself in a finite way of limited, different beings, and it all clicks together. That's what the universe is. It's one massive puzzle. Everything clicks quite perfectly together. Everything. 3D, 4D, whatever. The purpose of being is to become conscious of that energy within yourself and conscious of the energy within something else. So everything about life, if you want to know what is the Jewish view on life, the Jewish view on life is to connect in a conscious way with absolutely everything in a moment of mindful existence of what you are and what the other is and why you're interacting. It's very simple. It is so simple to do. It's just so hard. So it's simple to do. Just think that. It's so hard because who wants to think about that when you can think about so many other things? Imagine every time if you're married. So I'm married, so I'll use me as an example. Imagine every time I walked over to my wife, Rachel, I'd think, I am Menachem, I have a soul, I am a man, that is Rachel, she is a soul, she is a woman, she is my soulmate, I am her soulmate. We stood under a chuppah in which our souls were fused, and now I'm about to hug the soulmate, my soulmate. And as I hold her at that moment, not only will we be spiritually one, we're physically one. Who wants to think about that when they're hugging their wife? But yet, if we did that, imagine how intense that hug would be. I'm not talking about think about it. Just have that as an awareness as you hold your love. Do it with a child. I dare you, try it. Look at the child, say that thing comes from me, it is my flesh, I brought its soul into this world in an act of love, and here it is, placed in my possession, an absolute miracle of life. Not everyone has one, not everyone can have one. It's there, continuing the future of history. Let me just hold it for a moment. How deep would that hug be? You're not changing the hug. The hug is still a hug. The love is still love. But how much more intense would it be if you think like that? Comes Kabbalah and it says, by the way, if you think like that about everything, not only will it be interesting, you will be expanding your mind in a way that you will start experiencing things in a completely different way to how you are naturally experiencing life. It's like learning. If you never learn anything, you don't know anything. And if you don't learn, your brain hasn't grown. But through learning, you see, this is the beauty of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is helping us understand things that were written about in the medieval period in mystical texts. Or I'll give you an example of something I just learned earlier this week. I was just learning about cell regeneration. You know what cell regeneration is? Right? Our cells are constantly regenerating every 10 days or whatever. They're replacing themselves. So you are not you. In 3 years from now, you will not be you. In 3 years from now, every physical component of yourself is actually a duplicate of cells that existed 3 years ago. I think we once had a lecture here. I believe it's 3 years for the full cycle. 3 years. You will physically not be the version of you now. But because of the cell regeneration, literally a photocopy of the cell is taken, and then that cell continues. But there is a breakdown, which is why we end up dying. It's not as robust as the previous, which is not as robust as when we were children, and eventually it's not as robust. Now, this idea is discussed in the Rabbeinu Bechaya, who lived in the 1250s. He talks about this. The whole idea of cell regeneration, and he talks about because before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, that is what was meant to happen. That when a person's body was regenerating, it would regenerate constantly at the optimal state, and therefore we'd live forever. Because if the cell that's regenerating is exactly the same as the cell that was, and you are perfectly healthy, you'll never die. It's only because it's not a perfect copy and there is a slow breakdown and damage is brought into the sequence that we actually end up dying. Pardon? If that's your only problem, don't worry about it. If that's the only problem with living forever, don't worry about it. Yeah, whatever, they didn't. But the Rabbeinu Bechaya is talking about how is it possible that Adam and Eve were going to live forever? And he talks about the change in the biology of a human being before and after the tree of knowledge. Now, I don't really want to get into what was he talking about and and do you believe it, do you not? I'm talking about that a guy in the 13th century was writing based on Jewish mysticism how the human body works. And it's the most fascinating books on how the human body works, not from a not from a medical perspective. Maimonides usually writes from a medical perspective, based on the medicine of his day. But then you get the mystics writing based on the mystical perspective. So thanks to neuroplasticity, we have been taught that the brain is forever changing and forever growing and forever going through change as a result of experiences and things that we learn. So you meditate, you change your brain. Meditate for 4 weeks, you will change your brain. Do a brain scan, meditate for 4, 6 weeks, do another brain scan, and a neurologist will be able to tell you, whoever studies the brains will show you exactly what has changed. Go online, you can see heaps of medical research that shows this. It's the most fascinating thing. When you learn something, your brain changes, the wiring in your brain. When you learn, as a result, because of your brain changing, you now not only know this, but you also look at things differently. Your brain responds to information differently because you have changed the brain. If you never learn anything, not only have you not learned, but you're ruining your ability to learn. If you don't use your brain's going to begin to, not rot away, but it's going to begin to rot away. We've got to use our brain if you want your brain to last. We used to be like, oh, put everything in the cupboard and it will preserve it. You put your money in the cupboard, it's going to become worthless. Imagine 50 years ago, you had £1,000. Oh, in Australia, pounds. Had £1,000, and you put it in the cupboard, and you say, I'm going to leave this £1,000 for my children. You don't put it in the bank, and you don't put it in investment. You don't buy anything. You keep it in £1,000 in £50 notes, and you pull it out 50 years later. What have you got? £1,000. Good luck, A, trying to cash it in, and B, how much are you going to get for it? Your dollar bills don't inflate with the rate of currency inflation. Your investments inflate. Your spending and buying and selling is what keeps you up to date with inflation. But if you just store it, nothing's going to happen. Store honey, nothing will happen. Store your brain, nothing's going to happen. And if nothing happens, you've got a useless brain. You've got to use the brain. Beautiful studies that are taking place now with people with early states of dementia and Alzheimer's and all sorts of things about neuro exercises which they're hoping which will help preserve the brain that little bit longer, or hopefully that long time longer, in order to offset the deterioration as a result of dementia. So these are beautiful new studies, but these ideas we've had for a much longer time. And I'm not getting into comparative science and spirituality. I just want to talk about that that when you learn something and you internalize the learning and you process the learning, not only do you now know something, but you have shifted the way you look at the world, not just because of the knowledge, but because you have changed your brain. If you expand your thinking to a point of experience and thinking, so you've got academic, the thinking of the academics, and the experiencing of what the academic subject spoke about. When you bring that together, what Kabbalah is saying is that you will actually move into, I just gave a class on Saturday, on Shabbat about this, you will move to a place of 1 + 1 = 3. That's my equation. That's not what the Kabbalah says. But what do I mean? Because 1 + 1 normally equals 2. Correct, academically speaking. If you have one of something and you have another thing and you have one and then you have one, now how many do you have? 2. So what if marriage was like that? If I take one woman and I put it with one man, I have a couple. But what have I not quantified in that sum? Love, attraction, excitement. Well, that you can't put numbers on, so we're not bringing it into the mathematical equation. But it doesn't change the fact that I have it. When you have a set, it's worth more than when you just have a whole lot of individual things, right? So you go, I've got an ace, a jack, a king. I've got an ace, a jack, queen, and king. Does that count for anything in any game? Surely that symmetry does count. It does, right? Yeah. Or if I've got a 9 of hearts, a 9 of spades, a 9 of diamonds, a 9 of clubs. You haven't just got 4 cards, you've got something which is worth so much more than 4 cards. But it's only because you have the 1 + 1 that you have 2, and the 2 is really 3. So when you have the knowledge, plus the application of the knowledge, plus the experience of the knowledge, you don't just have something that's quantifiable, you're moving into a higher experience. What does Kabbalah say? Know the intention of what you are. Combine it with the intention of what you're engaging with the knowledge that brings the two together, and you won't just have done something, but you will experience something that I can't tell you what that experience is. But when you experience it, you'll know you're experiencing it. It's like love. If you try to explain love to someone, they're not going to get it. Then when they experience love, they go, "Oh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, it's great." You try to explain a feeling to someone, and they've never had it. You say, "Oh, this person hit me and made me feel insulted." So they know hitting plus this equals hurt, but they don't know what insult feels like. But then all of a sudden someone hits you. Why do you feel sad when someone hits you? Just feel the pain. It hurt, okay. A hit on the arm equals pain, and yet you're dashed. You're broken. How could this person hit me? Just leave these non-tangible things behind and just go with the pain in the arm and wait for it to heal. Why the broken heart? And yet broken heart is something real. People die from a broken heart. Well, you don't die from a broken heart, you die from cardiac arrest. Yes, but it's this whole emotional process that took place within this context that can't be quantified, and yet it is so real, which is why today there's fascinating studies about people who die from broken heart. Old lovers, people going through depression, that it's just this added experience which leads to further internal breakdown, and the will to live leaves, and the immune system goes, and it's not something that's just so simple to track. Yes, down immune system, dead. There's something so much more. And so what Kabbalah is saying is that when you interact with something in a meaningful way, with the intention and the understanding, not only is the sum well done, the sum is you're entitled to an experience, and that experience is this moment of euphoria. That's what I spoke about on Shabbat. If you missed it, start coming on Shabbat. I'm sure we'll do it again. So that's 1 + 1 = 3. So what's that all predicated on? That there's me. I am a spiritual individual. Everything else is a spiritual individual. People, animals, plants, inanimate objects, everything's spiritual. And euphoria is the feeling when you have made a meaningful and correct connection with it. Euphoria isn't what proves it. Euphoria is just a product. So it's like if you get high from meditating or you get high from using drugs. They're not the same high, but you get high, you have an experience, not the same. So don't use the result as proof that you've done something right, just by the way. But that euphoria, that inner enlightenment, that joy, that bliss that takes place is that moment of connection. What is connection? What is connection? Connection is where you get in touch with your inner self. If your inner self is in something else, you'll still feel it. How could your inner self be in something else? Well, that's what soulmates are. There's a part of you in someone else. There's a part of someone else who's inside you. That's what bliss is. Bliss is when you're in touch with a core component of yourself, but it is only delivered by an external thing that brings, it closes a circuit inside you that wasn't closable based on your own natural existence. So when we connect, we're connecting actually with ourself on some level. If on nothing else, on a Yechida level. Yechida is the point at which everything becomes one. Told you we're doing Kabbalah tonight. I'm not mucking around with stuff tonight. So Yechida is the point at which everything is one. So everything is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. That there are basic levels of existence, and which is what allows me to exist. You're alive. You've got some basic life existence going on inside you. However, on a higher level of where everything is one only where everything is non-divisible. So if you're looking at this room and you see red tablecloths, blue tablecloths, video cameras, microphones, me, other people, you're not operating on a conscious level of Yechida, you're operating on a much lower level. Yechida is where you don't see difference. There is no you in Yechida because everything is one. How could there be you if everything is one? So as long as you are aware of you, you're not operating on the level of Yechida. However, you can still be super consciously operating on the level of Yechida. And if you tap into a a emanation, a shadow of a ray of your inner Yechidah, you're going to go, ah! Let me give you an example of what I mean. Okay, remember when you were a kid and you got scared of shadows? What are you scared of? A shadow? Yeah, but the shadow tells me that there's something scary. You don't need the something scary to be scared. You just have the shadow. What's a shadow? A shadow is a blockage of light. So the light is passing except where the space of your fear is, the monster. So you look at the shadow's not even real. The shadow's not real. And you're scared of the shadow. There's no monster, there's just a shadow. So what you're fearful of right now is a representation of something else. It's not the thing itself that you're scared of right now. You'll say, no, because without the thing itself, I wouldn't be scared of the shadow. True, but you don't see the thing itself right now, which is why your mother, your father used to say, it's not real. Turn on the light. It's just the chair with clothing on top. It looked like that. It's not real. But you were scared of the shadow, and the shadow wasn't even real. Now let's think of another version. A name. A name is not the person. A name is not the person. So remember when, like, if you had a sibling or a parent or a grandparent that was overseas and they were coming back after a very, very long time. They said, oh, Nana's coming in 1 week. Nana's coming. They just said Nana. Your grandmother's not in the room. What are you getting excited about? Because just the mention of what we're talking about gets you excited. It's not the thing itself. It's an extension of the thing. The mention, the name, the memory. It's got nothing to do with the real thing. It does, but the real thing's no closer today. You know, they're not leaving for another week from wherever they are. But just the thought of it already gets you excited. So it's an extension of the thing. So just when you hear the news, I'm excited about it. So when you get I'll give you one more example. I love this example. My father always says, don't use it, people won't understand it. So should I just give it a shot? Okay, the Russians in the room, I think, will understand, as long as they remember some elements of oppression in Russia. No, because who here remembers the Tsar? Oh well. Oh well, I guess this example isn't very relevant. But I'll give you a good example. The example that gets brought in Hasidic teachings, because remember, much Hasidic literature was written in the time of the Tsar. You see a guard, and you see the guard standing there in perfect clothing, polished gun, polished buttons. It's minus 20 degrees, and they're standing there, no shivering. They're not blinking. And you look at them, and you go, oh, I'm impressed. But this person, you know what makes them so impressive? It's not their discipline. It's the Tsar that makes them impressive. Because all they are is the Tsar's foot soldier. And it's only their fear of their commander, who is a commander in the Tsar's army, who is answerable to the Tsar, is this person standing like this. And yet you don't see the Tsar. You've got nothing to do with the Tsar. You've got nothing to do with the power of the Tsar. You just see this low foot soldier standing at attention, and you have reverence for everything that this soldier represents. Even though it's just this soldier, it's not the Tsar. If you saw the Tsar, you'd be, oh, the Tsar. This is the example brought in the Hasidic teaching. If you saw the Tsar, you'd be, oh my God. But you don't even need the Tsar to be, oh my God. You just look at a soldier standing in minus 20 degree Russia, and you go, oh my God, this Tsar is something. If this is how his foot soldiers are standing at attention, with such a stoic poise. So you don't need the Tsar. It's just the extension of the extension of the extension that gets you excited. Okay, I've laboured the point. It's not even the point of tonight, so I'm moving on. If you got it, I'll let my father know he was wrong. If you didn't get it, what do you know? Label was right once again. So on a Yechidah level, we don't really consciously operate. However, if we can get a glimmer of a moment of unification, we go, oh, that was amazing. Sexuality, the intimacy between a husband and a wife, is a moment of yechidah. Not truly, consciously, but this is what happens. The soulmates are completely unified at that moment. What is sexual intimacy? It's a moment in which each one completely loves the other. You say, I'm not sure about this, I'm just telling you this is what it is. Whether it happens like this in real life is everyone else's problem. Each one loves the other to the point of self-sacrifice for the other, is completely overjoyed by the fact that the other one is there, feels completely stimulated by the other, is completely indebted to the fact that the other one is there, and feels like nothing without the other, and is now so joyful that the other is there. In what way? In a mindless way. Because in that absolute deep moment of intimacy, there's no thinking. You don't think about your experience. You don't think about them. You don't think about you. It's just the moment. The moment lasts, what? Seconds. A moment of unification. But it's absolute yechidah. There is no ego in that moment. We're talking about in a marriage, in a deep relationship which has been massaged for years. In that moment, there's no belittling of self. There's no self-grandeur going on. There's nothing. It's just being with the other. It's a moment of yechidah, and the pleasure in that moment is greater than any other pleasure you can get in the world. Not eating, not music, not art, all pleasurable experiences, but not like this. This is a form of pleasure that makes you go, oh. You just cease to be for a moment. You just are. You're just in the moment, in that moment. As soon as you start thinking about it, you bring the ego into it, you bring your awareness into it, it's gone. So our whole life could be like that. Our whole life could be like that. Every moment you could be walking around feeling like that. If we realize the absolute spiritual intimacy and opportunity of finding a component of ourself within the other and realizing that we are the other. So there's this absolute connection, like just look at your hand. Everyone just look at their hand. And even if you look at it, you don't feel it. Look at it. You can't really feel it. If you start moving it, you feel the muscles. But if it's not doing anything, you can't really feel it. You're looking at it. Look at it. It's so one with you, you can't say, oh, I think I'm feeling it. You can't do that. You are it. So you can't feel separate. You can feel the movement, you feel the tension in the muscles. But if you're just looking at the concept of your hand, just look at the shape of it, you can't feel it. It's a very strange experience because it's you. You are it. But you're not having pleasure because it's not the same form of connection. Imagine you had that pleasure. Imagine you looked at your hand, you just went, oh my God. It's amazing. You're feeling down like, oh, not anymore. It's incredible. So now I've told you about it. Guess what the purpose of life is? The purpose of life is to get to that point with everything that physically exists. To get to that point. Of course it's possible. It's just not easy. When Mashiach comes, that's what life's going to be like. Everyone goes, oh, what's it going to be like when Mashiach comes? What does this mean, the Messianic era? What is it going to be like? World peace. World peace, schmold peace. That's nothing. Imagine you looked at an African. Imagine you looked at an Asian. Imagine you looked at an American. Imagine you looked at your neighbor and you just like, went, wow, you are like completing my universe. I can't take my eyes off you. You just can't say it. I think they'll still have lawsuits when Mashiach comes. But imagine that. Imagine like you reach that point. You say, that feeling's impossible. Not at all. You ever eaten a good meal? And you go, oh my God, that was really good. You ever listen to a good piece of music and gone, oh, wow, that really touched something deep inside. You ever looked at a piece of art and gone, oh, breathtaking. Have you ever had a moment of love with another person and you just go, oh, wow. So it is possible. We're just not used to having it on an ongoing basis. So we go, if we can't have it, it must be because it's not possible. Maybe we're not working hard enough. And we all know if you work too hard, you don't get it. Anyone that works on love doesn't get love. You work on yourself and love results. You can't work on love. You can't say, come on, love me. I love you. It doesn't work like that. Come on, hug. Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? It's like kids trying to drink beer. Like, I still don't like it, still don't like it. You're never going to like it doing that. Just let it rest for 10 years. Come back and revisit it when you're 17. Trust me, it'll taste good. Don't force it. Allow it to happen. You have to allow things to happen. When you allow it, what's allowing? You're letting your ego out of the picture. It's not about you. You happen to go through this incredible experience because you let go. Unless you're psychotic and all that. That's a medical condition, so we're not going to go there. No, because there people have these strange, even then, anyway, I'm not going to go through it. So what's the point? The point of life. The point of life is to achieve that. So every moment we actually live like that. Every moment we live like that. So if you're doing mitzvot, you're constantly trying to do that. Even if you're not trying to do mitzvot. No, I'm not religious. Nonsense. I could surprise you how many mitzvot you're doing, even if you're not religious. And people say, oh no, I don't really do much. I'm not very observant. So really? Really? Should we pull out a little list and see how many things you actually... Do you ever give money to the poor? But you're not observant. I thought you don't do charity. Like, when was the last time you ripped a leg off a living animal? You haven't done that lately? Well, I guess you are more observant than you think. Like, you'd be surprised how... When's the last time you committed idolatry? No, not lately. Kidnapped? Steal? No, not doing any of these. Looks like you're more orthodox than you thought. So, so if anyone ever says, oh, I'm not orthodox, I say, please follow me. Come, Satan will teach you. Join my Facebook group where we kill and pillage and do all sorts of fun, unorthodox things. So people who aren't that, maybe what they mean is they don't keep kosher. One mitzvah. Or they don't keep Shabbat properly. Because everyone does keep Shabbat to some degree. Where you're in a car the whole Shabbat. Like, sun's going down, quick, fill it up with petrol. I've got to drive for 25 hours now. You know, you'd be surprised how much you're doing. You might be doing it accidentally, which means that we're constantly refining ourselves inadvertently. Inadvertently, we're refining ourselves. You ever loved someone? You're inadvertently refining yourself because there's a mitzvah, Ahavat Yisrael, to love another. All these mitzvot are expanding our conscious ability to experience this moment. So, if the whole point of life is to develop these intimate spiritual relationships with everything through expanding our consciousness, which is done through academic learning, coupled with practice, coupled with suspending one's ego in the moment of engagement, that's pretty much all I've said tonight. Wish I could have done that quicker before. Well, then we've got two components to the world. Two components to the world. The component of good and the component of bad. What is good? Good is where everything is united. What is bad? Where things are disconnected. It's very simple. Bad is not really bad. Disconnect is really what bad is. So think about it. If you kill someone, there's a complete disconnect between you and that person. It is one of the greatest forms of disconnect. Hence, there is a pretty lousy outcome. What is good? Connection, where things connect the right way. So, for example, if you marry someone, it's a great way to connect with them. Don't marry too many people because that's not a way to connect. but marry a person, that's a connection. Eat something, that's a connection. Eat something with intention, that's a good connection. Eat something with a bad intention, that's a disconnection. What do you mean, eat with a bad intention? Eat because you feel you have the divine right to kill other things. That's disconnect. It means I don't care about you. It's no different to punching someone because you're frustrated. I don't really care about you. I'm disconnected from you, so I can hit you because it's my anger that needs dealing with. So that's disconnection. So disconnection is bad and connection is good. The ultimate purpose of the universe, of the infinite dimensions of the universe, is to get back to a point of Yechidah where everything is so connected it feels one. What is the opposite then of that? To break apart to a point that you feel dual. There is you and there is me. There is you, there is you, there is you. There is all this separate stuff. And I like it like that. I want everything separate, different, better, worse. Great way to differentiate. I'm a better race, you're an inferior race. That's complete disconnect. Take it a step further. I don't need you. I will kill you. That's a complete disconnect. You don't even feel anything. So take a Nazi, for example, just as a good example. How did the Nazis do certain things to babies? I never understood it. Because one of the things that changed in me after I got married, I don't watch many movies or anything like that. I made a decision years ago, like I just don't need that in my life. But I remember after I got married, I'd still watch an occasional TV show. I'd definitely watch a movie here and there, or download DVD, all that stuff. And if I would watch a child being hit in a movie, I couldn't watch it. And that only started after I had kids. Before that, I could watch the most violent stuff. It didn't bother me. Now, if I just see someone yelling at a child in a really aggressive, abusive way in a movie, I remember they had an ad. There was an ad for domestic violence on TV. And I had like a little kid. They always have the black bags under their eyes. And it's very, very emotive. I had to change the channel. I couldn't watch it. I know it's fake. I know it's just an ad. I know it's not real. I couldn't watch it. Because once I have kids, how could you? So what I never understood was how Nazis could just do things to babies. I still don't understand. Like they just throw them up and do all sorts of violent things with them. I'm not going to enumerate them. How did they do that? They did that because they had built a complete disconnect between themselves and the baby. People had managed to successfully bring such disconnect between themselves and other people. They weren't people, they were rats, they were subhumans, they were whatever, but they weren't other humans. And by building that disconnect, you can start doing things to them and without feeling any guilt or any emotion, no experience of connection, no pain, no empathy, complete disconnect. Where did the Nazis get the ability to do that? Because there is such a force in this world. Because in the infinite, you must have both. Otherwise, it's not infinite. The thing is, in the higher realms of the infinite, bad feels it's good, and therefore it unites with good. In the lowest realm of Asiya, in the lowest dimension of the physical, bad is able to feel bad. It doesn't sense its own good, and therefore it has no connection to good. And as a result, people can tap into that energy because we've got the potential for that energy within us. Because we are potential. We are Klippas Noga. We have the potential to go either way because we have both within us. The purpose of humanity is to connect with things and to reveal the good. What does the good mean? Reveal the connection. As soon as you've done that, boom, poof, it joins the good. Once you've done that holistically. So you eat bread. You take a carrot. You eat it. It's gone. All its energy is now a part of you. All its mass is gone. It's gone. It's now part of your flesh. So it has been completely transformed into whatever your intention was. If you had good intention, it became good. However, people or other objects that haven't been destroyed still have both good and bad. If we can keep nurturing it, they ultimately become good. So look at these tables, look at these chairs. They're all good. You're sitting on them. We're meditating. We're learning spirituality. It's all good. It's all good. It's not 100% good. It's good right now. I could take one of those chairs and I could whack someone on the head with it. I haven't completely demolished the negativity in it. I've just moved the chair to a place of goodness. And the chair wants to be there because it can't do anything on its own. It has no ability. And therefore it wants, and it's in the hands of humanity. The only being that is able to differentiate between good and bad as a connection, disconnection, and ascribe the value that we're talking about is humanity. And humanity can do that because we've got both inside us and we've got both around us, and we can tap into either the good or the bad. When we tap into the good, we are connecting. When we tap into the bad, we are disconnecting. What is a crisis? What is negativity in our life? Is that we are on a path of connecting. The negativity in this world doesn't want us to connect because it's going to demolish the negativity. Because when there is a critical mass of positive consciousness in this world, the negativity will cease to exist. That's how it's going to happen. It's a bit like a black hole. Once you're in its pool, you're going in. And once you're in, you're not coming out. As in, there's no emission of energy from a black hole. It's all in. And once it's all in, it's part of the black hole. I don't know what happens when something becomes part of a black hole. It becomes so compressed it becomes a part of it. I think. If not, I'm still waiting for the physicists in the room to say, Menachem, every time you bring one of those examples, you're loopy. But I'm waiting. Either I'm right or we haven't got a very intelligent. No, I'm just joking. Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. What is negative? What is a crisis? A crisis is a mass build-up of distraction. Distraction. That's what bad is. Bad is a build-up of distraction. What happens when you go through something negative, or when you go through a crisis? At the point of crisis, you could actually become selfless, right? So you're driving down the road. Chas v'shalom, a person is driving down the road, and they are hit by a car. They're fine, but their passengers aren't. In that moment, you just zone into them. Got to help them, got to get on the phone, got to start dealing with them. Don't move. I know CPR, I'm going to deal with it. You move into it. Then once you get to the point of your own awareness, everything changes. Once you get to the point of your own awareness, everything changes. You're focused on yourself and you can no longer process what's going on. You're now limited to your own brain and your own emotional experience in the moment. Now, you're not to blame for that, don't worry. But then what happens? It lingers. It goes on. I'm not talking about trauma right now. I'm talking about where the crisis is ongoing. It's very hard to get out of this thought bubble of what's going on. You don't care that there are butterflies in the forest. You don't care about that. All you care about is trying to restore the world back to what you want it to be, or you want to make the world what you want it to be. What you end up in is in a moment of where you are so consumed with yourself that you are no longer able to focus on why you exist. You are so consumed on your perception of reality and what you want reality to be that you can no longer move back into your natural self of engaging with other things for the sake of the other. You are completely locked into self. What naturally happens when you're locked into self? Disconnect. By the fact that you are engaged with yourself in such a profound way, you become disconnected from other things. It's not good or bad. I'm just pointing. It is bad, but whatever. Don't feel guilt, because that's not the point. Going somewhere with this. So when you're in that challenge, you are very much locked into the self-preservation, and you move beyond the self-preservation. You're moving into self-focus. That's what naturally happens. We're wired to do that. The Nefesh Bahamis takes full control. The animal soul takes full control of our conscious observance of the situation. And what is happening the whole time that you're there? You're not engaging in a meaningful way. You ever noticed how when you are focused on yourself, it's very hard to focus on others? If you're having a bad day, doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking. Doesn't matter what else is going on in other people's lives. You ever notice that when you're in a bad day, you're less compassionate? You ever notice that? When you're having a bad day, you're less compassionate. The poor person on the street suddenly matters less. Matters less. You don't necessarily have a nasty thing to say. You're not necessarily judging, but you just don't care right now. Complete disconnect. Now that's what we naturally do. But in the forces of the world, this is Sholish Klippas Tmeis. This is the negativity of the world, and the negativity of the world as a consciousness is winning. I was going to say is trumping. Is winning. No, because I often use that word. Someone pointed out that I often use the word trump. It's a good word. At that point, it's winning. It's winning. It is succeeding in building disconnect in the physical reality. And it will maintain for as long as the energy, the momentum is there to keep you in that state. Have you ever been in a bad mood for a few days? Have you ever been in a bad mood for a few weeks? It is possible, provided that the condition is right. It's not going to be like you go to a restaurant, chef burns your food, and you say, come on, can I get something else off the menu? And they say, actually, no, kitchen closes at 9:30. So you go home, grumpy. The next morning, you're grumpy. But it's not like a week later, what's wrong? Oh, last week I went to the restaurant. Kitchen closed at 9:30. Oh, it was bad news. And? I haven't recovered. I haven't recovered from then. Have you eaten since then? Oh, yeah, we had a great night last night, but no, I'm still upset about that. And yet people allow things to define them because, again, that's natural, not necessarily the restaurant example. But what is happening is the negativity is winning. And it is keeping you in a state of disconnection. And when you're in a state of disconnection, the one thing you don't want to do is connect. Which is why when you talk about when people have marriage issues, when they've got intimacy issues, it's not just necessarily about the relationship. You've got to become more holistic. You've got to look at what else is going on. Is it work related? Is it something else? Because there could be all sorts of other negativity, and negativity within starts to shut down the ability to connect, because the negativity is not just about something bad going on, trigger, fix the bad. Negativity happening to us in the world is actually to derail us and disconnect us and distract us from why we exist, which is connection, the removal of negativity in this world. That's what we exist for. And so what negativity is doing is it is fighting it. I know I've turned it into a little cartoon character. Negativity doesn't want, positivity does. But just go with the moshel, go with the metaphor, because it's the best way to understand something which is far, far more complex. So what do you need to do in that moment? For that, you need to go inside. You need to go inside you. And you need to move into a place of higher awareness, which is perfectly possible. You move into the space of the nefesh hasichlis. The nefesh hasichlis is the intellectual soul. The intellectual soul has no opinion. The intellectual soul just has a helicopter view of everything. So if you've ever had voices in your head, this voice says, do this. The other voice says, don't do it. So when you feel like doing something, actually I feel like I'm not doing. But have you ever sat back and you just notice how you're feeling? You notice how you're feeling. It's like you're sitting back within yourself. I used to do a meditation with kids in school, and the meditation was, imagine you're on an armchair inside yourself. And we'd observe how we were feeling from the comfort of our armchair. We'd sit back and be on our armchair observing our own feelings. We'd notice how we were behaving, notice our responses to things. But you're noticing, so you're not completely it. That's the nefesh hasichlis. That's the part of yourself that is able to hover above, internally, hover above your feelings and take into account what's going on. We're not used to going there. We're very emotional by nature, because emotion is the best way to take control of something. So the two souls will often play with emotion in order to take dominance of the body. Nefesh hasichlis is where we can choose to go. How do you do it? Just do it. Just do it. Don't worry how you do it. Just do it. We all know we can. The thing is, we don't want to. How do I know that? Because that's why children in this world. Children are here to show us just how animalistic we are. We were all once children, so we can relate to them. You see how selfish children are? Children, selfish creatures. They are. Everything, they need this now. They want it. They really, really want it. We're poor. Don't really, really want it. Don't you love me? Don't you love me? I was like, hey, wake up, Mum. Wake up. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. Can you get me some water? Go get yourself some water. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. No, I'm really, really thirsty. Yeah, I still tell the story. I still have a 12-month-old. These stories aren't going away. So the kids are selfish, but they're selfish because they complete animal soul. It's only when you get to 12, 13 that your altruistic soul truly takes force in your consciousness. So you can rise above that if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't. Oh, that's what I was saying about children. Tell children to stop and think about it. It's one of the hardest things you can tell a child. Go to your room and think about it. You know what they do? I still remember when my parents would send me to my room and told me to think about it, you know what I'd do? Wonder what the hell they want me to be doing right now. So I started doing stuff at my desk, opening drawers. What am I meant to rethink if I was in this situation again? What, pray tell, would I do? Would I still bite my sister? I just don't know. Kids aren't capable of that. We tell them to. Adults are capable of that. Teenagers are capable of that. But little kids not. We start teaching kids about consequence. Go to your room as a punishment and think about why you're being punished. Oh, I'm in here because I bit my sister. Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. I'm going to try not to bite my sister next time. But don't go think about it. Go think about it is an adult's way of saying, I don't know how to deal with it, so get out of my way. Or I'm trying to solve all this noise. Go to your room. But if you think about it, what do you want from the kid? It's a 5-year-old. Oh, children are very smart. Yeah, they are smart, but they also are not capable of scaling cliffs just yet. They're good, but they're not that good. It's something that we develop as a human. And being an adult means we can rise above our feelings. Being a child means we virtually cannot. Oh, but I've seen children think. Children don't know how to. Adults do. And so the adult who is going through the crisis has the ability to move into a state of awareness of what is this crisis doing to them? What is it doing to me? How is it making me respond? How is it making me think? How is it making me feel? And then we get next week. Next week we're going to talk about how do you then make a decision in that state? How do you make a decision in that state? Well, based on what do you make the decision? Am I not allowed to wallow? Am I not allowed to get lost in the negativity? It's ongoing. What am I meant to do? That we do next week. But right now, what we've established this week is that there is good and negative in the world. Good is connectivity. Negative is disconnectivity, if such a word can exist. The whole first part of what we looked at today is the realization that nothing is what it looks like. Everything is a soul. Everything is actually both connected and consciously disconnected. The purpose of existence is to bring connection into our consciousness because we live in the realm of disconnect. Every other realm is in a form of connection. We live in the realm of disconnect. When we bring connection into the realm of disconnect, then there is completion in the universe. So everything is able to be connected with. That's what Torah and Mitzvot are all about, the process of connecting. The intention, the meditation, the thought process, the action, and then we get the feeling. The feeling is the magic of because the connection's taken place. It's like fire. Fire is the product of a whole lot of other things that have gone on. So, because the world is waiting to be connected with, our job, and the reason why we were born was to connect. However, if we do that, we will change the dynamic of the universe where negativity will become positive. But in this reality, negativity as an entity resists connectivity. Separate negativity. Yes, separateness resists connectivity good because then it's the end of its own existence. In the higher realms where negative exists in potential, it has a consciousness of its own good and therefore it is good. Because when you have a consciousness of what you are, you become that. What we're saying is, so you get lost in it, you need to move above it. You move into it, now how do I know how to respond? Because maybe I'm advocating to become non-emotional. Something bad goes on, you're not allowed to feel sad, you're not allowed to feel angry, you're not allowed to feel any of this. So that's what next week is about. How do you create the value system in that state of sitting back? But first, before you get to that dilemma, first see if you can get back there. See if you can get there. How do you get there? You review tonight's class. You have to have the stamina, you have to have the mental wherewithal to be able to sit down for a single moment and say, right, everything in this world has a soul. I have the ability to connect with everything in this world. I exist only to connect. And therefore, I need to be able to move back into a posture of connection. I'm not feeling connectivity right now. So what do I need to do about that? Next week. So next week we're going to look at how to make that decision. We're going to look further into the force within us, the Nefesh Bahamis, who resists us making that decision, and why just because you made the decision once, it doesn't mean you're stronger for it next time. We wrestle with this our whole life. But what is a crisis? We've got an answer tonight. What is a crisis? It is negativity pushing against us in order to distract us from what we are meant to be doing in life. It is there to enhance the separateness, the feeling of separateness, the ego within, to the exclusion and to the disconnect of everything around us. That is why a crisis happens. Why does someone get a big crisis and a little crisis? Not for tonight, but you can see where the answer is going to be. Big people get big rewards, big people get big problems. Little people get little rewards, little people get little problems. What's a big, what's a little? It's all relative. You look at someone else, that's a little thing. For them, it's massive. You look at someone else, that's a big thing. For them, it's a little thing. It's all relative. There is no big and small. There's only you. Don't worry about why one person goes through this crisis and another person. Just notice your crisis. Notice your challenge. Notice your negativity, the negativity in your life. And say, either I can sit and dwell, why is this happening to me? Which was what we said last week. Stop asking that question, because we can't answer that. And we're not here to find that answer. The answer will become apparent, but it's not why we're here. We're here to work out what to do about it. And this week, what I'm saying, what to do about it, is become aware of the way it disconnects, because it is not what it looks like. It is actually a force that is dressed in a way that can hijack you. Because if it came in another way, it's like if the boogeyman came now, you wouldn't be scared. The boogeyman's in your room every night. I promise you, tonight you'll see the boogeyman. If you're as untidy as I am, you leave your clothes at the end of your bed, the boogeyman's there. The lights are off. That's not the boogeyman, it's my clothing. What changed? It was the same clothing when you were 4, the same clothing now. It's that you've changed. Your perception has changed. So what we're working on is shifting our perception. Crisis is a boogeyman, and we're all 4-year-olds. And I don't mean to underplay anyone's challenge in life, but I am looking to make everyone realize that inside you is a very, very ancient, deep, powerful, spiritual force that makes you like a wise old person. But we're just not tapping into that. So we see boogeymen. And we're talking about how to fight boogeymen. And the way to fight boogeymen is not asking, why is the boogeyman sitting at the end of my bed? It's, what am I going to do about the boogeyman? And you know what you're going to do? Turn the light on. We'll talk about that next week. Good? Should we do another? Do you want another meditation? The first meditation was really important. You know why? Just helped you open up. But do you want to should we close up here? Should we do a meditation? Just close up? Okay. Just close your eyes. Get comfortable in your chair. Just make sure your back is supported, your feet are on the ground, your hands are in your lap. And just take a few breaths in and out. In and out. And I want you to notice the sounds again, like when we started. Just notice all the sounds. And as you hear the sounds, you'll notice there are some that are closer, some that are further. Some which are higher and lower pitched, more consistent, less consistent. And just almost see yourself leaning back in your chair, observing all the sounds. They're all around you. So you're not labeling any sound, you're not thinking about any sound, and you're not listening to one sound more than another. You just hear them all. You're just sitting back in your chair, hearing them all. And just think for a moment how normally you'd listen to a few of the sounds. Some of them would annoy you, or you'd only hear certain sounds because you'd let them in. You'd become locked into those particular sounds and start excluding the others. But now we're just sitting back, just observing them all. None of them are entering, they're all passing through. Or none of them are staying with us, they're all passing through. So here we've got this ability to be able to just step back internally and observe. We do have this ability and this strength to tap into our nefesh hasichlis, the soul of intellectual and conscious observation. And we can use it to observe what happens outside of ourselves as well as inside. Just take a moment and observe how you're feeling. Notice any thoughts. Any feelings that are welling up, or any thoughts or memories. Don't try to trigger them if they're not coming, that's fine. Just notice there are no thoughts. So we're just observing our inside. Just come back to your breathing. Come back to the feeling of the chair, your feet on the floor, your hands in the lap. You're just moving back into feeling and being in that feeling as opposed to observing it. Allow the sounds to enter. Notice the air conditioning. Come back into the room. Come back to your breathing. Notice the tram driving by. And count backwards from 5. When you get to 0, just breathe out, take a breath in, and open your eyes. Don't really want to come back. It's very peaceful in here. So there. Did anyone absolutely struggle through that meditation, like could not do that? Too hot? But could he fell asleep? Everyone else was okay with it? Okay. So if you could pretty much do that meditation, then you can pretty much do what we were talking about tonight. It's that easy. And if you struggled with it, it's a little bit harder than you thought. But it's very doable. Are there any questions on? Oh, it's always easy when someone's guiding you, for sure. For sure. Are there any questions on tonight's content? No? It's always good to ask that after meditation. Everyone's like, why would we have, what time is it? Good. So I'll see everyone next week on Monday, unless you want to start coming on Shabbat to find out what you're missing out on. Thank you.